What's happening, everybody? John Calipari is leaving Kentucky for Arkansas. What in the world? A Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along on today's show. We're going to talk all things John Calipari and leaving Kentucky for Arkansas. But I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. All right, let's dive into this because, man, what in the world? The rumors started spreading Sunday evening that John Calipari was talking with Arkansas. Arkansas Democrat Gazette put out the report first. Said, according to sources, Arkansas is in talks with John Calipari to be their next Razorbacks coach. They said the search for the new head coach zeroed in on John Calipari. And, basically took a surprise turn on Sunday when his name surfaced as a candidate. We'd heard the names like Chris Beard and Jerome Tang. This is all in the aftermath of Eric Musselman deciding to leave Arkansas for USC. The Democrat Gazette said officials were in discussions with Calipari about the opening, and one source cautioned a deal that could bring Calipari to Arkansas was far from done. Calipari's 65. He's been Kentucky's coach for the last 15 seasons. Obviously had the early round exit again this year, and a lot of Kentucky fans were not happy. And there was talk of maybe letting him go, raising the money for his buyout and telling him hit the road. We're going another direction. A few years ago, the thought of Calipari leaving Kentucky for another coaching job would have sounded wild, but Kentucky's 1-3 in their last three NCAA handful of tournaments. Yeah, last three tournaments. Had shocking losses to St. Peter's and Oakland. But a lot of discontent there with the Wildcats fan base. And so we'll get to Kentucky fans and how they should be reacting in a little bit. But Calipari is the second highest paid college coach in the country, making an annual salary of $8.5 million there at Kentucky. The only coach with a higher salary is Bill Self at Kansas. He makes $9.6 million. Calipari's salary is more than double than what Arkansas was paying Eric Musselman. And, of course, we know Mitch Barnhart and the weird relationship that he has with Calipari. They did that awkward sit-down interview a week ago, kind of trying to settle all the Kentucky fans' concerns that, oh, we're good, we're fine, we get along. It was a little awkward. But Barnhart said at the time, as we normally do at the end of every season, Coach Calipari and I had discussions about the direction of our men's program, and we can confirm he will return as the head coach for his 16th season at Kentucky. He had a great recruiting class signed coming into this year for this next season for Kentucky. 5-star center Jaden Quaintance, 4-star guards Boogie Fland, Travis Perry, and Billy Richmond, 4-star center Sampto Cyril, and 4-star forward Carter Knox, all big-time, recruits that he was bringing into Kentucky. So I had all this to set up, but literally right as we started recording the show here, Pete Thamel came out with a tweet and said, John Calipari is, this is confirmed, is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the next head coach at Arkansas. The deal is expected to be completed in the next 24 hours. This is Pete Thamel. He does not make things up. He does not get things wrong. Pete Thamel is very keyed in. And so, my goodness, what a turn of events. And, be talking literally days ago with our buddy John Neighbors of Locked On Razorbacks about Jerome Tang, like the Kansas State coach, to now switch to John Calipari coming to Arkansas. What an unbelievable turn of events. And look, again, Cal has not had the postseason success. In fact, Eric Musselman has had way further better postseason success the last couple of years at Arkansas than Calipari. Now, this year, Musselman and Arkansas kind of went belly up. It was a year where nothing went right at Arkansas. They missed the tournament. Cal made the tournament, but again, a first-round loss to Oakland and some dude that was just jacking up three after three after three. Some 23-year-old dude on Oakland. But look, we know Calipari's had a great history before going to Kentucky. He coached at UMass, led UMass to a Final Four, did the NBA thing with the Nets. But it's just very interesting because, just some of the names we had heard for Arkansas. In fact, Mississippi State coach Chris Jans and Arkansas Little Rock coach Darrell Walker, who, of course, was an All-American guard for the Razorbacks back in the 1980s. Both of those guys interviewed with Arkansas officials on Sunday. That's according to the Democrat Gazette. Chris Jans is 54. He's done a nice job there at Mississippi State. They've gone 42-27, 2 NCAA tournament appearances in his 2 seasons there. And Darrell Walker at University of Arkansas Little Rock was the Ohio Valley Conference Coach of the Year this season, where they went 21-13, shared the regular season OVC title there. But obviously, John Calipari, the skins on the wall are way greater than any of these other coaches that they've interviewed. So Calipari had said a couple days ago in talking with Mitch Barnhart, said there's so many things out there that aren't accurate. You can't defend all this stuff. You just have to let it go. Hopefully people logically look at it and say, look, they've done a lot of good together. He said that's part of athletics and dealing with that, trying to get better, trying to figure out how we do this together. I mean, Calipari was on that radio show a week ago saying this is what we're going to do at Kentucky, kind of like trying to get all the fans to buy back into them. We got this great recruiting class coming in. I'm going to, get on the phone with these guys right now and start figuring out who's coming back, who's going pro. I mean, this was all talked about a week ago. And now, again, John Calipari finalizing a 5-year deal to become the next head coach at Arkansas. And according to Pete Thamel, depending on when you guys are listening to this, the deal expected to be completed within the next 24 hours. That was my first reaction was, what's his contract say? Because the whole deal was he signed a lifelong contract with Kentucky. And that was the big thing. If Kentucky was going to fire him, they're going to have to pay him millions and millions of dollars to buy him out. But, he could retire and slide over to the front office, or the administration office for Kentucky and go be a guy who raises money through donors and all that kind of stuff and live a happy life. He's made millions upon millions. But I don't know the verbiage of, did he have a buyout? Could he just leave for somewhere else? And, I'm sure they had to pay a ton, and it sounds like Arkansas is willing to pay a ton. So what's so crazy about this is, again, this started as a joke, like Calipari leaving Kentucky for Arkansas, and now it's becoming a reality. Absolute insanity. All right, we need to get to, coming up next, we're going to get to what other people are saying about this, because there's a lot of people out there. So we'll kind of rewind a little bit, because I had a lot of the stuff about what the latest rumors were, but this is all before Pete Thamel's, substantiated report that Calipari is indeed going to leave. So we'll hit on that coming up next here on Locked On SEC. But first, I want to remind you guys, this episode is presented to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It is playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball is in full swing, and FanDuel, they are your best place to bet on every game. And right now, new customers are getting $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150. Win or lose, if you never bet on FanDuel before, you can go make your first bet and use our promo code LOCKEDON. Or rather, it's FanDuel.com/LockedOn, and that's going to get you that special offer. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks. All of it is on that app, FanDuel app, that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. What are you waiting for? Go visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Again, it's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make your first bet an automatic win. Get that $150 in bonus bets, win or lose, on your first bet. Is FanDuel. They are America's #1 sportsbook. Again, FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Get signed up, get started today, download the app, and you are in business with our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Going along here, Locked On SEC, and hey, I want to remind you guys, if you're somebody who works from home and you're watching Fox Sports, ESPN all day, hey, pull up our 24/7 streaming sports channel, Locked On Sports Today. It is on YouTube and the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Locked On Sports Today, bring you all the biggest stories across sports without all the screaming. So I want to dive back into this. We asked, we were posing, what are people saying about these, the reports when it was coming out that John Calipari might be leaving Kentucky for Arkansas. And our buddy Aaron Torres of Fox Sports, we had him on the show a while back. He put out there, he said, all I know about this Calipari Arkansas stuff, he said, everybody I talk to in Arkansas right now believes it's happening. He says it's outright that John Calipari is going to be totally forthright with an athletic director, Mitch Barnhart, who he is privately feuded with for years. He said, not saying it's a done deal, but it's far from 0% as well, which is what, a lot of people kind of thought. This is just something that some internet rumor that got started. Calipari's not going to go to Arkansas. But again, Aaron Torres, this was before it was officially confirmed. He was saying, Calipari's not going to be, he's not going to tell Mitch, hey, I'm talking to another school. He doesn't have to. Jeff Goodman reported, this was as of 9 o'clock Sunday evening. He said Arkansas is making a strong push to bring John Calipari to Fayetteville. Sources confirmed to the Field of 68. Calipari has a strong connection with Arkansas booster John Tyson and is very interested. Calipari struggled lately in the postseason. One source close to him said he has been miserable in Lexington. That's a quote. Quote, miserable in Lexington lately, with much of the fan base turning on him and wanting him out. So that was an interesting one, of course. Again, the strained relationship with Mitch Barnhart. How about Matt Jones of Kentucky Sports Radio? He's as dialed in as anyone. He tweeted out that John Calipari is good friends with the sons of the Tyson chicken family and have been for a long time. They are big Arkansas boosters. They've got a lot of money. I believe he's posted about them before on his social media. So Matt Jones bringing that up too. I mean, look, this is about money, and does Arkansas have the money to do it, and the boosters? And obviously the Tyson chicken family, they got the money. And I've seen a lot of Kentucky fans already tweeting, I'm never going to eat Tyson chicken again in my life. Thanks a lot. Even if you're, happy to see him move on or whatever, it's just, it's very interesting that this is going down. A few other ones of what people have been saying about this. Matt Norlander, I saw he was one of the first to confirm that John Calipari told Kentucky he is negotiating with Arkansas. That was from Matt Norlander, who said, John Calipari and Arkansas have entered into serious talks about their head coaching position. Sources tell CBS Sports, and Kentucky has been notified in the talks. Calipari's contract terms mandate he must inform Kentucky if he engages with another school about a job interview. So again, that's a little bit more background on the information. Since then, we found out Pete Thamel has said, this is a done deal. This is happening. The weird thing is a lot of these rumors started on Twitter. The first I saw it Saturday, Twitter user Trilly Donovan, who a lot of people follow for basketball chatter, he said he heard from 3 various people that Hunter Yurachek was trying to reel in John Calipari. And he said 3 people not connected, like 3 different people confirming that. And so that was very interesting because, again, Hunter Yurachek was, I think, a little bit, he was unhappy with how the whole Musselman thing went down, and they wanted to strike while the iron's hot and go get a big name. And this whole thing with Calipari was public news the last 2 weeks about, Kentucky fans kind of wanted to move on. Kentucky was like, it's a lot of money for a buyout. Let's run it back one more time, and we'll do a forced interview sit down with Mitch Barnhart and John Calipari, make it seem like we're all good. Mark Titus, he tweeted out, he said, Calipari fighting to convince Kentucky to keep him around just to leave for a conference rival a few weeks later is incredible. Can't believe this is actually going to happen. That's what's the craziest part to me is, like, Calipari was on his coach's show, like, convincing Wildcat fans, like, hey, this is going to be okay. Hey, we're going to run this thing back. I'm going to talk to the guys. We're going to see if Reed Shepard, you want to come back? We'll get you some NIL money. We'll do, like, it was all the things were in motion. The wheels were in motion to, he was going to stay. And again, right, wrong, or indifferent. I know some Kentucky fans were divided on it. I think a lot of Kentucky fans said, look, all right, whatever. We'll run it back one more year. We'll see what he does. Because he's got a stud recruiting class coming in. Well, now all that's up in the air. One more that we saw, And again, this is right before we started doing the show tonight. Trey Schapp of 103.7 The Buzz, he tweeted out, according to his source, John Calipari to Arkansas is done. He is set to make around $8 million per year. So he's going to make close to what he was making at Kentucky, at Arkansas. But again, that's double the money from what Eric Musselman was making. And it's kind of funny, you wonder when these conversations started, because we know Calipari was unhappy, a week ago, 2 weeks ago at Kentucky. And, this whole thing on their meeting to discuss, is he going to come back or not? You wonder if the Tyson family had reached out then and said, hey, Musselman's kind of on the fence. He might be leaving. Could we get Calipari? Like, what if they reached out then and started kind of laying this foundation? And then maybe, Musselman's camp gets wind of that and goes, you're going to double, like I'm making just over $4 million. You're going to double that to bring in John Calipari. Yeah, then I'm definitely out of here. It's like, I feel disrespected. So not sure if that happened, but just saying that certainly is within the realm of possibility, because rumors happen and people talk. So that certainly could have been in the works behind the scenes. So that's just a little update there on what's going on. And again, the latest here is we are doing this podcast late Sunday evening, and probably a lot of you listening to this going into Monday morning. But Pete Thamel from ESPN reporting, sources, John Calipari finalizing a 5-year deal to become the next head coach at Arkansas, expected to be completed in the next 24 hours. And again, a few other reports saying out there that he will make around $8 million per year. Huge salary. And man, crazy to think. John Calipari, the guy who was at Kentucky, who you thought was never going to coach anywhere else, probably retire, had a storybook kind of run with Kentucky that has dried up here the last few years, but signed that lifetime contract that, whenever he decides to hang it up, would just slide into their, administration side of things. And now going from that to a rival, a team in the SEC. And keep in mind, we're going to have SEC East, SEC West going away. So it's not like, oh, he'll be in the West side and they're not going to play Kentucky much. No, I mean, that's bringing Texas and Oklahoma and opens this whole thing up. So, all right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Where does Kentucky go now? Because now we're into, once this thing's finalized, and not even before it's finalized, Kentucky is already on the phone now going, where do we go next? We got to hire our next head coach. And so we're going to talk about that coming up here in just a second. Where do the Cats go for their next head coach? All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC, a special Sunday night into Monday morning edition, as we're touching on the big news that John Calipari is reportedly taking the Arkansas head coaching job. And we're getting you up to date on all the latest news going on around that and what we're hearing, and just passing along to you guys and talking about the fallout here. All right, so here's the latest. Jeff Goodman tweeting out saying, if with John Calipari leaving Kentucky, one name that would be ideal for UK is Alabama's Nate Oates. And it's just so funny. We just talked about Nate Oates and the fantastic run he's just had, making the Final Four for the first time ever at Alabama. But the biggest issue with Nate Oates is an $18 million buyout, which he just signed in his new deal with Alabama. So I think that's off the table. But what's fascinating about this is, remember, the whole hang up here 2 weeks ago, we're talking about, Kentucky's got to pay $30+ million in a buyout to Calipari. With Calipari leaving on his own will, and what money they owe him, and if that money's freed up, maybe Kentucky is willing to go to that length to pay $18 million for a buyout. The tough part was going to be paying Cal $30+ million to go away, then get Nate Oates, pay $18 million to Alabama just to get him out of his current deal, and then pay Nate Oates a contract on top of that, which again, you'd have to make him one of the highest paid coaches in college football, or college basketball, which he already is at Alabama. But maybe that's more palatable for Kentucky now. If you're not paying Cal anything and he's just leaving on his own accord, go pay $18 million to Alabama to buy out Nate Oates, and then pay Nate Oates a big fat salary. Now, the problem with that is Alabama fans are ecstatic with the run Nate Oates just had. They're not going to let him walk. They may say, we'll give you another raise to keep you here. So again, just kind of all the fun things that happen with a domino effects of coaches leaving. It's just it's crazy. All right, so who are some of the other names? So Dan Hurley is going to be a name that's going to be at the top of a lot of Kentucky fans' lists. In fact, he was 2 weeks ago when the thought was Calipari might be leaving. Dan Hurley, depending on when you guys are listening to this, is playing for the championship tonight. He won the championship last year at UConn, has a chance to win it again and repeat as a champion. He is 140-58 in his time at UConn. He's made the tournament the past 4 seasons. And if he wins back-to-back titles, I mean, doesn't feel like UConn would throw every dollar they have to keep him there. I don't know what kind of booster money. Do they have Tyson chicken money at UConn? I don't know, but certainly I would think they would do everything in their power to keep Dan Hurley there at UConn, especially if he wins the second championship. But even just playing for back-to-back championships is an incredible feat. But this would be like the best thing since Billy Donovan at Florida. Remember, Billy Donovan eventually left to go try his hand at the NBA. So who else will Kentucky consider? Well, let me just throw, these are names popping up already on the betting odds list. Mark Pope's name has popped up. He's the BYU head coach. He's gone 110-52 in 5 seasons there, made the tournament this year, was on those Kentucky teams from 94-96, was part of the national title team in 96. So, again, good coach, but like, is that, and he's got ties to Kentucky. He's a former Wildcat, but like, is that a home run hire? Like, is that who, think of who Kentucky, Kentucky's has this proud tradition of great coaches. And, back to Adolph Rupp, to Rick Pitino, and then you had some weird years there with, with Billy the alcoholic and all that stuff. Tubby did a good job. Tubby won a championship, but then that kind of dried up. And then Calipari, was on paper the home run again. So, again, Mark Pope, not the sexiest name, but again, maybe a name that you throw in there. And then all the other names being thrown there were names we were talking about just 2 weeks ago. Jay Wright's name is going to emerge again, the former Villanova head coach. He is, doing analyst work with CBS. And reportedly, there was a report a couple weeks ago that said Jay Wright might have some mutual interest there. If the Kentucky job were to open, Jay Wright would be willing to listen, I guess, is what the report was. I don't know if he'll take it. I don't know if he wants to get back in coaching. He might be enjoying this media gig, and I don't have to deal with NIL recruiting or any of that stuff. That's why he got out. He was on top. He won 2 titles at Villanova. He could stay out forever, but he at least listen when Kentucky calls. I think some people feel that way. So Jay Wright's name is going to come up. The other one, again, Scott Drew at Baylor. His name had popped up, and the whole thing with Baylor is private institution. They got all that money. They could do whatever they want with. Don't really know how much Scott Drew is making behind the scenes with salary and incentives and everything else. They're taking care of him very well, but Scott Drew won a title at Baylor a couple of years ago. Does he feel like Kentucky is that dream spot? Hey, I could go there and, be in the prestige of a blue blood and all that kind of stuff. So, and again, that was another name that there was some reports of mutual interest there that Scott Drew would be willing to listen to Kentucky. Not saying he would take it, not saying he would sign on the dotted line, but Scott Drew, would at least hear out what Kentucky is willing to offer. And then some other names, kind of some wildcard names just to throw in the mix. Shaka Smart at Marquette. That one scares me a little bit, right? Because Shaka came from the mid-major, had great success, went to Texas, not exactly a blue blood, but a big-time power program in the Big 12, and didn't do very well. Couldn't, miss the tournament or had early exits, whatever. So Shaka didn't do great at Texas, goes back to a mid-major Marquette, and has had great success again. So that just might be where Shaka Smart belongs. Maybe he belongs at the mid-majors where he has great success. Maybe not cut out for a blue blood. But again, maybe a name you at least interview and check out. And then another one is Brad Underwood at Illinois. So, again, a guy who's had a lot of great success. So those are just some of the names that have been floated out there, at least on some of the betting sites early on of odds and all this kind of stuff. So, man, just crazy how quick this stuff happened. Again, just to recap. So Pete Thamel reports that it's a done deal. Matt Norlander of CBS Sports had reported John Calipari in Arkansas had entered into serious talks. Then this coming out since we've been doing the show. He said, latest Kentucky athletic director Mitch Barnhart tells CBS Sports Calipari has not yet notified him of talking to Arkansas AD Hunter Yurachek about possibly becoming the next Arkansas head coach. Other sources reiterated Arkansas's heavy pursuit of Calipari and an increased belief that this thing is going to happen. Matt Norlander's source reiterates Calipari to Arkansas is imminent. He does not have a proper agent, and this is a very delicate situation. As was told to me previously, Cal directly approached Barnhart Cal directly approaching Barnhart would mean that this thing is done. He said, as of 2 minutes ago, Barnhart still says he still hasn't been contacted by Calipari. I don't know. Is he dodging his calls? Is Cal calling him and he's not answering? Matt Norlander, Calipari and Arkansas are nearing agreement to a contract to bring him to Fayetteville. Source confirms to CBS. His biggest points of emphasis in his new job, he would get assurances of accepting transfers, the ability to bring in his freshman class, and major NIL promises. I think he had all that at Kentucky. And then he says, Calipari leaving Kentucky has been on the table going back to February. Sources tell CBS Sports. He privately expressed significant serious interest in the Ohio State job, but the timing wasn't right. Arkansas coming available was a dream shot out of Lexington for Calipari. So that's very interesting. And as Matt Jones said, Norlander talks to a lot of Calipari's people, and this new report is very interesting that Calipari wanted out in February. So there you have it. That's what I was saying. Like, a lot of this stuff maybe laid a foundation. And again, maybe Hunter Yurachek coming out publicly and not being in love with Eric Musselman and fully committing to him was they knew Calipari might be out there and that offer might be on the table. So again, now it all kind of starts to make sense. Musselman maybe he wasn't feeling the love from Arkansas, had his first down year after all those Sweet 16 runs. And he says, all right, let me jump ship for USC, get out to the West Coast where I'm from and see what I could do there. But now John Calipari, the Jersey guy who owns a home in Lexington, Kentucky, owns a home in Nashville, Tennessee, is now going to go out to Fayetteville, Arkansas with Tyson chicken money and go try to win there. And hey, look, if you're Arkansas, you lose Muss, you get John Calipari. It's exciting. Again, Cal's 65, so how long is he going to be there? But again, this is a guy who won a championship. He recruits at a high level. With you give him all the NIL money and to go get transfers and all this, who knows? Maybe Cal can make a run at Kentucky or at Arkansas and win a title there. But we will keep you guys up to date on all the latest. This is just this news cycle. I mean, all the new info keeps coming out. So we'll keep you up to date on the latest of what we are hearing. And again, Pete Thamel, as we're doing this podcast, puts out the report. John Calipari finalizing a 5-year deal, and that deal will be completed in the next 24 hours. So thank you guys so much for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. And hey, for your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today, streaming for you 24/7 on YouTube. And hey, man, appreciate you guys checking us out. And we'll be back a little bit later. We'll have a football conversation later today. We'll have our Auburn spring game recap. We'll get to that, but we had to get to the John Calipari news. This has been Locked On SEC.